Hey everyone, welcome to a deep dive into something I think we're all interested in, the science of happiness. You guys sent in a really interesting PDF, How De-Happy Analysis of 38 Primary Studies. So we're not messing around here. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what really works for boosting happiness based on real science, not just good vibes only.
And one of the really cool things is that researchers have actually found ways to measure happiness, objectively.
Okay, so how does that even work? Is it like rate your happiness on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, it's a little more involved than that. Scientists use standardized questionnaires that look at different sides of well-being.
So there's like a method to the madness.
Exactly. We're talking about two main dimensions here. The affective dimension, which is basically how you're feeling right now in this moment, and then there's the cognitive dimension.
Yeah.
And that one's more about your overall satisfaction with life, the big picture.
So it's like you could be having a bad day, but still generally feel pretty good about your life, kind of like weather versus climate.
Perfect analogy. And that's important because it shows us that happiness isn't just about chasing those fleeting moments of joy. It's more about building a deeper sense of well-being over the long haul.
So it's not about those temporary highs.
Right.
Okay, so that brings me to something I've always wondered. Is there some magic happiness pill? Like, if I win the lottery or land my dream job, am I going to just be happy forever?
That's where the idea of hedonic adaptation comes in. It basically means that even major life changes don't necessarily lead to lasting happiness. Yeah, you get that initial surge of joy, but then we humans are incredibly adaptable and we get used to our new normal, good or bad.
Cool. So it's like, when you stay in a fancy hotel room with an amazing view, the first day you're like blown away, but by day 3, it's just kind of there.
Yes, exactly. And what's interesting is that this adaptation happens with both positive and negative things.
Okay, so no shortcuts to lasting happiness then. That's a bit of a bummer. But seriously, if it's not about those big external changes, then what can we actually do to boost our happiness? The research has got to have some answers for us, right?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the most surprising findings is that prioritizing time over money is a big one.
Wait, really? Tell me more about that. How does that work?
Studies have shown that people who really value their time and make choices to have more of it, even if it means maybe earning a little less, they tend to report higher levels of happiness.
Interesting. So it's not just about being lazy or anything. It's about making conscious choices with your time.
Right. It's about choosing how you want to spend your time rather than just focusing on making more money.
So like choosing experiences over possessions, things like that.
Exactly. And these people, they often prioritize things like spending time with loved ones, having meaningful conversations. They're just more present and engaged in their lives.
I like the sound of that. But be honest, how realistic is it for the average person to achieve this time affluence thing? Most of us can't exactly just quit our jobs and become independently wealthy hermits.
It doesn't have to be that extreme. We're talking about small, conscious choices. Like, could you maybe outsource a chore you hate to free up an evening to spend with friends? Or walk to work instead of driving? And maybe, squeeze in some exercise and social interaction at the same time?
Okay, yeah. Little things like that can make a big difference. I love it. It's about being intentional and making sure our time is aligned with what we value most.
Exactly.
Now let's move on to something else that's crucial for our well-being. And something I know I don't get enough of sleep. We all know it affects our mood. But what's the science behind it?
Oh, there's a definite connection. And it's not just about how much sleep you get, but the quality of that sleep, too. Studies show that the sweet spot for most adults is around 7 to 8 hours a night.
So what happens if we're constantly outside of that range?
Well, that's where this idea of the inverted U-shape comes in. Basically, both too little sleep and too much sleep have been linked to lower levels of happiness and well-being.
Got it. So we need to find that sweet spot, that Goldilocks zone of sleep for peak happiness.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of, what about sleep quality? How does that play into all of this?
Now, this is really interesting. Research has shown that good sleep quality actually influences how we process and remember our experiences. When we sleep well, we tend to remember the positive stuff more vividly.
Whoa, so it's like our brains are literally highlighting the good times when we get enough sleep. I had no idea.
It's true. And on the flip side, if you're constantly sleep deprived, it can actually make those negative emotions louder, make you more reactive to stress and all that.
Okay, I'm definitely convinced. Good sleep hygiene is officially a top priority for me. So what are some evidence-backed things people can do to improve their sleep?
One of the most effective things is actually a type of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI for short. It basically helps you identify and change any thoughts and behaviors that might be interfering with your sleep.
CBTI, interesting. But I'm guessing that involves finding a therapist, going to sessions.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the easiest thing to fit into a busy schedule. What about people who maybe don't have the time or resources for that? Any other options?
Definitely. There are some great apps out there now that offer guided CBTI programs. One that I often recommend is called Sleepio. It's actually backed by research and can be a really convenient way to get some help with your sleep.
Sleepio. Okay, I'll have to check
Right.
that out. Now let's talk about another big one, food. Is there a magic happy diet?
Unfortunately, there's no magic bullet, one diet that's going to make everyone happy. But the research does have some interesting things to say about how certain foods and nutrients can impact our mood.
Okay, let's hear it. What have they found?
Well, studies consistently show a link between eating fruits and vegetables and generally feeling happier.
Right, but that's not exactly groundbreaking news, is it?
Yeah.
Eat your veggies, be happy. So is there a specific amount we should be aiming for?
That's where it gets a little tricky. One study showed that happiness levels seem to peak at about 7 servings of fruits and veggies a day. And another one found a similar thing, but with 8 servings. However, and this is important, correlation isn't causation, right?
Right, so just because there's a connection doesn't necessarily mean one directly causes the other.
Exactly. There could be other things at play, but it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Makes sense. So while we can't definitively say it's a cause and effect, it can't hurt to load up on the good stuff. What about other dietary factors? Anything else the research points to?
One area that's been getting some attention is omega-3 fatty acids.
Omega-3s, right? Like fish oil and stuff.
Exactly. And it seems like taking supplements, especially for people over 60, might give their mood a little boost.
Okay, good to know. Anything else we should be stocking up on?
This one might surprise you, yogurt, but like the good stuff, with lots of live and active cultures, probiotics, there's actually a pretty strong link between eating yogurt regularly and just feeling better overall.
Yogurt for happiness. I can get behind that. Now, what about everyone's favorite social lubricant, alcohol? Where does that fit in?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. A little bit of alcohol might temporarily lift your spirits, but the research is pretty clear that overdoing it definitely leads to lower happiness in the long run.
Moderation, right? Like with most things in life.
Exactly. And it's really important to remember that everyone's different. What works for one person might not work for another. Your cultural background, your financial situation, your health, these
Yeah.
all play a role in making healthy choices that you actually enjoy. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
That makes sense. Now, let's switch gears a bit from what we're putting into our bodies to how we're moving them. Time to talk about exercise. Does it have to be hardcore workouts, or will a leisurely stroll in the park do the trick?
Great question. It seems like both aerobic exercise and just regular physical activity contribute to happiness, but in different ways.
Oh, how so?
Well, aerobic exercise like running, swimming, that sort of thing gives you that instant mood boost. Endorphins, right. But it doesn't last forever.
So it's like a shot of espresso for your mood. Great for a quick pick-me-up, but you might need another one later.
Haha, exactly. It's the regular physical activity, even if it's not super intense, that's really key for long-term happiness.
Okay, so staying active in general is key. Any specific types of exercise that stand out as being particularly good for happiness?
Tai Chi has shown some really promising results, especially for older adults.
Interesting.
It's great for mood, stress reduction, overall well-being, and yoga too.
Yeah.
Across all age groups, yoga has been linked to higher levels of happiness.
Tai Chi yoga. It's all about that mind-body connection, isn't it? But I guess the main takeaway here is that any movement is better than none, right?
Absolutely. Even if it's just a quick walk during your lunch break or taking the stairs instead of the elevator, those little things add up.
Love it. Okay, now let's get into something I find really fascinating. Mental fitness. What are some evidence-based mind hacks we can use to, train our brains to be happier?
Well, a great place to start is with mindfulness. It's all about being present in this moment, without judgment. Just paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your physical sensations, but not getting too caught up in them.
Okay, I think I get it, but can you give me an example?
Sure, imagine you're on your way to work, totally stressed out, thinking about a million things you have to do, and you walk right past this beautiful garden in full bloom and don't even notice.
Oh, I've totally done that.
That's what a lack of mindfulness can do. It makes us miss out on all the good stuff happening right in front of us.
So true. So how do we actually become more mindful? Besides, like, literally stopping to smell the roses.
Well, meditation is a great place to start. Even a few minutes a day can make a difference. And luckily, there are some awesome apps out there like Headspace that make it super easy to get started.
Yeah, Headspace is great. I use it sometimes too. Any other mind hacks that the research points to?
Absolutely. There's something called behavioral activation, which basically means actually scheduling enjoyable activities into your week, like putting it in your calendar.
So it's like telling your calendar, no, blank space, you're not winning this week. We're filling you up with good stuff. I like it. What about this acceptance and commitment therapy thing? ACT, right?
Yes, ACT is fantastic. It's all about developing what's called psychological flexibility. Basically, it gives you the ability to just be present with whatever life throws at you without freaking out and while staying true to your values.
Okay, so it's like having a mental toolkit for dealing with all the curveballs life throws at you.
Exactly. It helps you navigate the tough stuff without getting totally derailed.
That is super valuable these days.
Yeah.
Okay, what about something a little more low-key, like reminiscing about happy memories?
That's a great one, especially for older adults. Research shows that taking some time to reminisce, especially about times when you felt really proud or grateful, can really lift your mood. It's like reliving those happy moments all over again.
It's like creating your own highlight reel. I love that. Speaking of feel-good practices, what about humor and laughter?
Oh, absolutely. Both using humor as a way to cope with challenges and just, experiencing genuine laughter have been linked to increased happiness. Laughter really is the best medicine.
That's true. And laughter's contagious.
Mhm.
Okay, what else could we add to our mental toolkit here?
Well, there's a whole category of what's called positive psychological interventions.
Mm-hmm.
These include things like practicing gratitude, doing acts of kindness for others, and really honing in on your own unique strengths.
Oh, great stuff. Any particularly cool research findings about positive psychology that stand out?
There was one study where they found that even just observing acts of kindness, like seeing someone help an elderly person cross the street, actually boosted the observer's happiness levels.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's like we're wired for that kind of stuff. Witnessing kindness is uplifting.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've got mindfulness, behavioral activation, ACT, reminiscing, humor, positive psychology. It's like we're building our own personalized happiness toolkit here.
Exactly. And the most important thing is to find what works for you.
It's like we're all out here trying to create our own perfect happiness recipe.
Oh, yep.
But speaking of finding what works, you mentioned something earlier about personal experience being important. What did you mean by that?
Well, research is a great starting point, but it's really up to each of us to see how these things actually play out in our own lives.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal.
Exactly. What really clicks with you? What feels kind of off? Those are the discoveries that really matter.
It's like we've all been dealt a different hand of cards. And yeah, there's some general strategies, but ultimately, we have to figure out the best way to play our hand.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting. There's no single path to happiness. What works for your best friend or your partner or that Instagram guru you follow might not be the right fit for you.
That is so true. It's kind of a relief to hear that.
It really is. Embrace what makes you you, experiment, see what really lights you up.
So we're taking the research as a guide, but also staying open to the possibility that our own experiences might lead us in some unexpected directions.
Yes. And remember, finding happiness, it's not like reaching the finish line of a race. It's a journey. It's about learning to roll with the punches, find joy in the little things, and find what gives your life meaning.
It's like learning to dance in the rain. We're not trying to stop the rain. We're just learning to enjoy the rhythm.
I love that. And be kind to yourself along the way. None of us are perfect. Every day is a chance to learn something new, grow a little, and just find more joy in life.
That's a beautiful thought to end on. It's about embracing the whole journey, not just chasing some end goal.
Exactly. Focus on building a life that feels real and authentic to you, a life full of connection, purpose, and those little sparks of joy that make it all worthwhile.
This has been such a great conversation. Thanks so much for breaking it all down for us. And to everyone listening, keep experimenting, keep exploring, and remember, a happier, more fulfilling life is totally within your reach.
Absolutely. Until next time.
Until next time.